Welcome, everybody, to the CHIT Show. Unfortunately, Mr. Dan Noodles Man is Mr. Dan the No Power Man tonight. So I'm playing solitaire. Unfortunately, the show must go on. My efforts to put together a last-minute conference call among people who could speak to this topic have failed. It was literally last minute, as in, like, in the last 10 minutes or so. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. We are going to run down the CSR news. I really kind of wanted Dan here for that, and we won't get that, but oh well. So for those who are unaware, the Charles S. Roberts Awards announced their 2023 nominees today, earlier today, and the votes have begun to be tallied. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop, if anybody wants to look at it, the press release into the chat. Let me do it. I'll do it this way. There we go. So if anybody wants to look at the actual press release, be my guest. And in the meantime, we're just working off of my document here. So let's get started. These are games released in calendar year 2023. And we did have a number of additional category changes this year. As we have for the last couple of years, as we continue to kind of refine these, I will tell you that an objective is to stabilize this list. We're not quite where I think we would like to be yet, but I think at this point, I feel like we're getting really very close. So Dan's power is out, as far as I am aware. He texted somebody else, didn't text me. I don't know what's going on. But then I got a couple emails that said somebody in Canada tried to text me, and I didn't get the text. So I'm not sure what's up with that. It might be a crazy Canadian thing. So in any case, so they're basically, the categories have been grouped into three general classes. First is the period awards, which are exactly what it sounds like. Games set in a specific period. Stacking limit, I hope everything is okay. And I hope it's not Eclipse Insanity related. But we have three broad categories here. The period awards, what we're calling mode awards, which are awards for various different things. We may rename that, but I think the general class will remain where it is. And then the Capstone awards, which are a smaller number of signature awards that the CSRs give out. And then the Hall of Fame, which we are not making an announcement about right now, is administered by the Charles S. Roberts Awards, but is a separate thing. So for those who want to just go vote, I'm putting the link to the ballot in the chat as well. I don't know if we're going to take the full hour or go over. I don't know tonight. We'll see how long this takes. I can talk pretty fast. So we have our moderation team here at Ardwulf's Lair is hardcore, is all I can say. So let me straighten this out too. All right, so for Best Ancients, we have 4 nominees. Ancient Civilizations of the Middle Sea. This is a Mark McLaughlin and Chris Vorderbrugge design, based off of Mark's, I think it was just a Mark McLaughlin design, the earlier game in the series, Ancient Civilizations of the Middle Sea. I'm not sure if I said it correctly now that I said it out loud. But the 2023 release is the game that we are actually talking about. I will, I guess, also mention, just as an aside, that considerable legwork went into verifying whether every single game that was even a candidate to be a nominee actually released in 2023. And we're reasonably confident that we have gotten it correct. We did have to make judgment calls in a couple of cases, but I think that is okay. Now for number 2, well, I won't number them. I'll remember not to number them because all the nominees are just nominees right now and they are co-equal until a winner is announced. Second, the next nominee for Best Ancients Game is Kings of Rome by Aces Dizioni, designed by Enrico Iserbi and Andrea Magno. The third nominee is Onus Trianus by Draco Ideas, and the fourth is Storm over Jerusalem, a Impulse game by Scott Blanton from Multiman Publishing, which I think I did an unboxing of, but I'm not sure. I haven't played any of these, however. Dan, what are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you, Dan? What's going on? So he might be on his phone. That's possible. You know, you can StreamYard in via your phone. You know that, right? I've done that before. You've seen me do that before. You've expressed annoyance when I've done that before, because it is a little annoying. All right, so the second category is best medieval game. Now, all the period categories, sometimes the decisions have to be made about where something fits. And I'll mention that there was discussion, and it actually came down to us having to vote on it, us being the nominating committee, as to exactly what category Land and Freedom was going to pop into. It did end up with at least one or two nominations. So there you go. I don't know what, Jonathan, you've missed very little so far. If you look at the chat, you'll see some links that you should be looking at. Best medieval game. There's going to be situations where we have to fit a game into one of these categories, even though it sounds like it might straddle both. That's just going to happen. We're just going to have to make those decisions on a case-by-case basis. So the nominees for Best Medieval Game are Carolinian Twilight from Decision Games, designed by Brendan White, Inferno from GMT, designed by Enrico Acerbi and Volko Runke, Le Flot de Martina by Serigo Editions and Vevictus, as far as we can tell, but they're both, I think that's the same actual edition, but we could be wrong, but it released in 2023, designed by Jason Janot, and Plantagenet, aggravating with everyone with my pronunciation, from GMT, designed by Francisco Gradial. I sent you the link, Dan. Dan, do you need me to send it to you on the phone? Hold on. I'm sending Dan the link again. I don't know if this will help or not. Text. Shit. All right, hold on a second, folks, while we do some live troubleshooting here. Sorry about this, folks. We're trying to get Dan on. I sent him the link via email before, but let's see if this actually goes through. Yeah, this is not going to happen. Sorry about this, folks. We're trying to find Mr. Dan here on the phone. All right, let's see if that works for Mr. Dan. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, I've actually done this before, like an idiot, like put the wrong link in a post somewhere. So that was a terrible idea. All right, so where do we leave off? Okay, so those are the nominees for Best Medieval Game. This has been absolutely, totally disorganized. So, all right, so Best Gunpowder or Industrial Era Game. This excludes explicitly Napoleonic and American Civil War, because there's always a fair number of those games released in any given year. There's Mr. Dan. Smoking his pipe.
So Best Gunpowder. Hold on, I got to turn you off on the other phone. You hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Christ, you can't shut up on the other...
I'm a talker, as you might have noticed.
What the hell?
I had a hell of a time with this when I used the phone to call in. I gotta admit. And this was the problem that I had was feedback between the two audios. How about now? Is that okay?
Well, excellent. Thank you very much. Sorry for the trouble.
All right, no problem, no problem. I got now that I'm going to text you every day with inappropriate pictures. Actually, now that I have your phone number,
you texted the house phone, which is converted into a cell phone, which is now my wife's phone. So you're talking to my wife.
Okay, that works fine. So,
hey, did we talk about Bobby?
We have not talked about it yet. I did a short earlier today, and I will mention this, and I got kind of distracted by the last-minute schedule plan change. Bobby Factor, who some of you might know from his involvement in SD HistCon, he's been on Dan's channel, he's been on my channel, he's been on a lot of channels, passed away from throat cancer. This news came out via Harold Buchanan pretty late yesterday. Pretty upset about it, to be completely honest. Bobby will be desperately missed.
I'm actually quite taken aback because I was in touch with Bobby many times, and because we worked with Harold's SDH con, and just back and forth, and we kind of became like internet friends type thing. And then all of a sudden, I didn't hear from him, man. And then I thought, the guy's probably ill, So I kept bothering him, and then I got your email this morning that he passed. It blew me away. I wrote to Harold, and I actually I gave and all the team my condolences as fast. And then Harold writes back, and it broke my heart.
Harold's got to be completely crushed. He and Bobby were very close.
But he wrote to me. I gave him my condolences. He writes back. He says, "Hi Dan, Bobby was your biggest fan." Fucking Jesus.
Bobby loved everybody. That's
the kind of guy this guy was, man.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know, man. It really affected me. I'm really truly sorry. Gone too soon. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, he was just couple years older than me. I think he was about 4 years older than me. So he's about 15 years younger than you, Dan.
You're 15 years younger than me?
I'm probably about 10 years younger than you, I think, right? Aren't you about 60?
I'm 60.
Well, then I'm about 8 years younger than you.
Okay, well, respect your elders, for freak's sakes.
Let me tell you.
Anyways, yeah, very sad about Bobby. Sorry about that.
Yeah, fuck cancer. Hashtag fuck cancer. What can I say?
Yeah.
So, it's especially so soon after Dean too.
It's not a good year.
No, it's not. And there's other folks, like Mark Ruggiero and Andrew Rowland are both battling cancer right now, and it's just terrible. It's a terrible thing in general, and it's what can you say? We did a whole show on this a couple of weeks ago. I don't really want to go into it again.
The thing is, Mark Ruggiero,
or I'll have to leave.
Mark Ruggiero, that guy's going to outlive us all. I'm telling you.
Well, I hope so. Good, because everybody loves Mark too.
That's right.
Mark is one of those, like Bobby, a figure beloved by all in the hobby, and
yeah,
we're our best wishes are with him and Andrew and the other folks that haven't been as public about it. So I don't want to talk about it, but Mark and Bobby are not the only people in this exact boat right now. So, and Athena 2000 CE, this is true. And that's why we did the show a couple of weeks ago. It's just, it's very tough. And I would like to maintain my composure here. Right. So, but it does help to talk about it too. In any case, we're talking our way quickly through the 2023 nominees. And we just covered the first two, which is Best Ancients and Best Medieval Games. So Best Gunpowder, a very broad category, and I'm not sure what has occurred with Dan. If you missed the news, and I don't know if it was as widely disseminated as Dean Essig's passing, but Bobby Factor passed away from throat cancer. We are all quite upset about it. those of us who knew Bobby. I don't know what's going on with your video, Dan, but I still hear some audio.
Yeah, I know. This is messing me up, man. Don't keep going. Don't worry about it.
All right, that's fine. All right, so best gunpowder or industrial era game. Now, you will notice that in a couple of cases, we're always shooting for 5 nominees in a given category. In some cases, we have a different number due to ties. We will probably try to address that by conducting the final ballot votes in a different manner next year, but that's a merely procedural change. So, we'll talk about that when we make that change. We did not make any really big modifications to the nominating committee process this year. The categories did change, probably our biggest single year of category changes, actually. We welcome feedback on that, by the way, and I think that probably the best place, people can always feel free to reach out to me, but I'm happy to conduct such conversations in public. The Charles S. Roberts Awards Facebook group is probably the place for that.
Well,
However,
here you go. Before you go, let me throw in my 2 cents. You want me to throw in my 2 cents?
Oh boy, we got 2 whole cents here.
How am I ever going to win a CSR? What the hell happened to reviewers and scumbags and play testers? What's going on with that?
Well, we're maybe that'll come back at some point. We'll see. Didn't you win one?
I didn't win squat, man.
Oh, that was the Players' Aid hogging all the glory again.
Bloody hell.
How about that?
Who?
The Players' Aid.
Who?
The Players' Aid.
I can't hear you.
Anyway, we'll be talking to those fellas in a couple of weeks at Buckeye Game Fest. All right, so best nominees for best gunpowder or industrial era game. Let me just I have Inferno, but I haven't played it yet. I actually have Carolinian Twilight, but I haven't played it yet. And Le Flot de Martina actually looks fairly interesting, and I'm curious about that. I passed on Plantagenet for some reason. Dan, how do you pronounce the name of that game?
The way you said it, Plantagenet.
Plantagenet. There you go. See, Stan, as our resident French expert, has confirmed that I can't get checked too often. I'm aware. I've had one. I'm aware that it's not a terribly pleasant procedure, but ultimately you wake up and your butt's a little sore and you go home without cancer, hopefully, or at least an early diagnosis. All right. So the first games nominated for best gunpowder or industrial era game: 1562, The Beginning of a Tragedy by Serious Historical Games, designed by Philippe Hardy. 1812, War on the Great Lakes Frontier from Compass Games, designed by Ken Reppel. 1854, The Alma from Conflict Simulations LLC. This is Ray Weiss design. The Battle of White Plains by GMT, and this is a Mark Miklos game. El Gran Capitan, Campaigns of the Italian Wars by the best named company in wargaming, Europa Simulazioni, designed by Nicola Contardi. And Siege of Tenochtitlan, I butchering that, but that's about as best I can do, by the Historical Game Company, and this is a Steve King game. Are you familiar with any of these, Dan?
No, I'm just listening to your pronunciations, and you're doing pretty good.
Okay, so El Gran Capitan, this has happened every year, actually, where at some point, we're in the process, right? We get early looks at the lists of games that people think ought to be considered. And El Gran Capitan was one that I was like, ooh. And this has happened every year. I found something on one of the lists, that, and then I go and look at it, start doing the research, and I'm like, oh, this looks neat. I probably need to have this. El Gran Capitan is one of those. I need that. That looks kind of cool. So, and the Italian Wars are a topic of interest as a person of Italian ancestry, and there's not a lot of games on it. So there you go. What do you got to say about that, Dan?
Yeah.
Are we going to get demonetized for tobacco use on camera?
No, man. I was gonna. No. Obviously.
Okay,
not.
Good. Okay, I don't know that that's a problem. But
I'm not smoking tobacco.
How silly of me. Anyway, don't ask, folks. Don't ask. But whatever he's doing, it's completely legal in Canada. All right. So For best Napoleonic game, game dealing with the French Revolution or the Napoleonic Wars. So the Battle of Wagram by the Historical Game Company. This is also a Steve King design. Steve Kling. I said King the last time. Alistair, I'm feeling like this is possibly more information than anyone showed up looking for tonight, but thank you for the medical advice. Callendale smokes the pipe, and everybody assumes he's smoking weed, and he insists he's not, and I believe him, actually.
No,
but no one is willing to assume that it's not weed.
No, it ain't weed, let me tell you.
All right, so we got the Battle of...
What tobacco he smokes? He smokes Captain Black.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, at least you can get it at any gas station.
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyway, all right. Bonaparte overruns Piedmont by the Operational Studies Group, a Kevin Zucker design. No one will be surprised to find this on the list. Napoleon's Conquests by Fellowship of Simulations, designed by Bruno Lamotte. This is also a fairly impressive-looking game. And Napoleon's Eagles 2, The 100 Days, from Compass, designed by Chris Moeller. And finally, Viva l'Empereur. This is there's some confusion about this because it came out from White Dog and then was re-released by Blue Panther in 2023. Both of those things happened in 2023, which makes it eligible in these categories. And this is, of course, a design from Herman Luttman. And we all love Herman as well. So, all right, for Best American Civil War Game. This was actually a game, this year was a bit light on releases in the Civil War space. However, there's a couple other ones that were not eligible in this category because they are reprints. And we'll get to at least one of those later on here. Best American Civil War nominees are Gettysburg from Multiman Publishing. This was published in Operations Magazine. It is a Scott Muldoon design. Grand Havoc, Perryville 1862 from Revolution Games, designed by Jeff Grossman. This is a game in the Blind Swords series, which I have just acquired. And the 7 Days Battles from Worthington Publishing, and this is a Grant and Mark Wiley design that was released in 2023. Busted, if you got anything to say here, Dan.
Well, no, I just wanted to ask you because maybe the people want to hear that banter that's happening.
I assume.
How much time do I have, Ardy? These close on what? May 31st?
These close on May. The ballot closes. Hold on. I don't want to remember the date. I want to read the date off from the official literature. Midnight, May 13th, Eastern Time. I don't know if Dan froze or if he's thinking. Is that his thinking cap, or did I freeze? That would suck.
We both froze. May when?
13th.
Okay, so that's when the ballot closes.
That's when the ballot closes. Dan will be producing the awards show as usual this year. You'll have 32 hours to do so. I'm just kidding. But there's. But we're not going to have a 2-month delay between the ballot closing and making the announcements either. So,
you know what? When do you plan on having this show aired?
I'd like it to be aired. Hold on. We are not committing to a date, folks.
No,
but
I'm just saying.
I would say it would be great if it could air on the evening of May 27th.
Jesus Christ. Why don't you put a gun to my head and just shoot me right now?
That's 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Now, if that's not enough time, right, that's fine. Actually, the 27th would be stupid.
Can we? Because
yes, we can give you more time if you need more time. That's not a problem.
Okay. Because I like the pressure. I work well under pressure.
All right.
It's like someone asking me.
Hey, frozen again. Oh, boy. Anyway. This makes me want to start Yellow Hedgehog games, because why not, after all? All right. Well, Dan figures out what's going on with his connection, and it's probably just because he's on his phone. Let's talk about Best World War I game.
Yeah, what happened?
You froze again.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, if someone asked me to run for my life, I can't. I'm out of shape.
That's
Because you shoot me in the head.
okay. I'm not sure what that's in relation to, but okay.
The time constraint for the CSRs.
So what we have is kind of an open process where, well, maybe not. Maybe open process is not quite the word, but basically any member of the committee can submit a game to the committee for consideration for nominees, and then we talk it over. You know, what categories does it fit in? What categories is it appropriate in? Did it actually release in 2023? We verified that with every single candidate. And in some cases, that was significant legwork. Let me put it that way. And then if there is a dispute about where a game goes or whether it should be eligible at all, then the committee votes on that. And then at the end of the process, all the candidates get lumped into a single committee ballot, and the whole committee votes on the ballot. And the top vote getters in each category become the nominees. That is the basic process. And while there were some technical process changes, procedural changes, that we made this year from last year, they were very minor. We basically did it exactly the same way this year that we did last year, other than the actual mechanism of how we conducted the votes. So, why are you dejected, Dan? Because you got no power?
Yeah, but it just came back on, and the thing is I gotta get up from outside, and my chair sank in the mud because I'm too fat, and so my knees are gonna hit the table where my beer and iPhone is. So
oh man, I don't know, Dan. It sounds like you got a pretty good setup right where you're at, so it's fine.
There you go.
So Dan had a power outage earlier, so that's why. All right, so West World War One. What's that?
Ardy, someone on the comments, and I read before, said that if there were sparse sci-fi categories.
There is no sci-fi So there is no sci-fi category anymore from a period standpoint, but that does not mean that sci-fi and or fantasy games are not eligible. They can receive nominations. We did not. I'm not sure we might have one that might be the case this year. We do. There is a policy for that. There is a conflict of interest policy for this and other things, and we are supposed to disclose that. And in some cases, a given committee member may be asked to recuse from a specific vote about a specific game. And we used Discord actually for it, and Discord works fine.
Okay, so I guess if a game is tactical, set in a sci-fi genre, it would be under a tactical.
Yeah, it's completely eligible for that, right. And those games have always been eligible. We've really struggled over the last couple of years to fill a category with sci-fi or fantasy games, without me making the joke that hypothetical games are in fact fantasy games with elves. So. All right, Brant's. I'm really just making fun of Brant at this point with this comment. All right, the nominees for Best World War I game are The Cruelest Month from Against the Odds, designed by Paul Rohrbaugh, a previous guest on our show. Eagles in the Sky from Revolution Games, designed by Mike Lemick. Inferno Solisanzo by Sitza 1917 by Aleph Games Studio, designed by Andrea Brusati. Nice. How'd I do, Dan?
You did pretty good.
I got the Z's right, so there's that. This is a game about one of the battles, or all the battles, I'm not sure, on the Isonzo River in World War I, or one of the later ones, actually, because it's 1917. The World Undone, Serbia, from Conflict Simulations, a Ray Weiss design, and Western Front Ace from Compass Games, designed by Gregory M. Smith and Ian Cooper. Now, a couple folks have asked, and interestingly, they haven't asked in relation to Western Front Ace, why this showed up in Best World War I game, but not in Best Solitaire game. They've asked about it for Mr. President and one other one, and that's just the way the votes shook out, right? So that is the reason. Recognize that there's some categories. There were and this is always going to happen, right? There's always a ton of ideas that people submit in World War II, for example. I think we might have had 20 candidates in the World War II category. So subcategories are very hotly contested, and others are not. Carrier Battle was Molotov Cocktail, one of those games that this is this case with. Western Front Ace is another one. It's a solitaire game that was nominated for its period category, but didn't make it as a solitaire game for whatever reason. All right, so the big guy, World War II, best World War II game. The nominees are Carrier Battle, Philippine Sea from Compass Games. This is a John Southard design. Crimea, Conquest and Liberation from Multiman Publishing, designed by Anthony Burkett and Guy Wild. Downfall, Conquest of the Third Reich from GMT. This is a Chad Jensen, the late, great Chad Jensen, and John Butterfield design. Yes?
I was going to say, I saw the category, whatever. You're gonna name it, which is really nice.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that. Yes, we're covered on that. We'll get to that. All right. Heroes of the Bitter Harvest by Lock and Load Publishing, designed by Devin Hindley. The Hunt by Salt and Pepper Games by Matthias Kramer and Engin Kramer. I'm probably screwing that up. So, and Undaunted Battle of Britain from Osprey Games, designed by Trevor Benjamin and David Thompson. And I'll mention that wherever possible, we have listed the design credits in the order that they are listed on the game itself. Okay. So if the rule book says it's Trevor Benjamin and David Thompson instead of David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, hey, and besides, David's here, right? Wait, David, get Trevor to come on and do the show with us. Come on.
For God's sake, man.
There you go. David's been on a million times. We don't even know if Trevor Benjamin is an actual person or if he is merely another clone of David Thompson, slaving away in the coal mines of David's basement of game design.
I'm telling you, he's a secretive man, David Thompson.
Yes. Now I have 3 of these personally. I'll mention that. All right, for best modern game, this is another very pretty kind of broad category. This covers basically anything after World War II. That's not just straight hypothetical. So there was a lot here, and I felt like we got some very interesting mix of nominees and I'm generally very pleased with the fact that we got nominees that weren't like the usual suspects. I don't know if I want to put it that way, because there's plenty of great stuff from GMT and Multiman and Compass and whoever that we recognize. I'm pleased to see they're not the only companies getting nominations. Let me put it that way. And that's not by design as such, but we did make a point to bring people into the committee that would have different opinions and were from, say, Europe, where they'd have better visibility on European games than we do.
Hey, that's good. Who thought about that?
So, me. What are you talking about?
That's why you're there.
You're the inspiration, as always, Dan. All right, so the nominees for Best Modern Game are The British Way from GMT Games, designed by Stephen Rangazis. The Mog, Mogadishu 1983 from White Dog Games, a David Kershaw design. That Others May Live from Holland Spiel, designed by Brad Smith. Valley of Tears from Multiman Publishing, a Carl Fung design, developed by who we now have to cite as the late, great Dean Essig. Warfare, Modern Tactical Combat by WS Games. This was another one that was I had never heard of this. I had no idea what this was. It came up in committee, and a couple people were familiar with it. That was fantastic. By WBS Games, designed by Carlo Amadeo and Paulo Ciarlo. Or is it Ciarlo, Dan?
It's Carlo Amadeo and Paolo Ciarlo.
Ciarlo. Okay, I'll try to remember that pronunciation, because I'm about to butcher some more names here. And then We Are Coming Nineveh from Nuts Publishing, designed by Juliette Lamenahez. I'm absolutely have no confidence in that pronunciation whatsoever. Harrison Brewer, whose name I can't pronounce, Rex Brynan, and Brian Train, is the only person whose name I'm totally confident in pronouncing.
You know what, Ardy? You pronounced that Juliet's name right.
Oh, well, good, because I don't even remember how I pronounced it at this point.
You got the accent. A's.
All right, so that's good. I don't know what the diacritics mean, man. Is this name French?
It looks French, man.
Okay, I don't even know.
Yeah,
So,
because you have an accent aigu, an accent grave.
right. Well, I'm aware that the French uses both of those diacritics, but I don't know what they're not stress. I don't know what they mean. So I'm used to seeing diacritics as stress indicators, and the grave accent is typically an indicator of secondary stress from stuff I've looked at, but that's not what French does. Okay.
Well, I learned a new word today, diuretics.
Diacritic.
That's close.
There you go. All right. So now we move on to the Mode Awards. These are games at a specific design or mechanical approach, more than a specific period. And we were very, very deliberate about what we did here. So there is another game about Chicago 68 coming out in the pipeline, by the way, Alistair, which I guess make it the second game after Chicago on this thoroughly unexplored topic. The nominees for Best Strategic Game are The British Way from GMT Games, once again designed by Stephen Rangasis. Downfall, Conquest of the Third Reich from GMT, designed by the late Chad Jensen and John Butterfield. Europa Universalis, The Price of Power. Aegir Games, designed by Eyvind Vetlesen. And I've actually talked to Eyvind, actually. A Global War, World War II Worldwide from White Dog Games, designed by Wes Ernie. Did I spell that wrong in the press release? That would suck. And Ben Madison. No, it's correct. It just looks bad. And Land and Freedom from Blue Panther and designer Alex Knight. Now we should... I think this is an amazing marketing idea. So, all right, Best Operational Game. The nominees are Crimea, Conquest and Liberation from Multi-Man Publishing, designers Guy Wild and Anthony Burkett. Inferno, Guelphs and Ghibellines V for Tuscany from GMT, designed by Enrico Acerbi and Volko Runke. Littoral Commander, Indo-Pacific by the Dietz Foundation, designed by Sebastian Bay. Plantagenet, The Cousins' War for England by GMT, designed by Francisco Gradial. And Red Strike from VUCA Simulations, designed by Yves Rattel. You had something, Dan?
No, man. I'm just listening to you, and I'm scrolling with you.
Okay. Land and Freedom, very, very warmly received game all around, to be frank about it. The nominees for Best Tactical Game are The Battle of White Plains, designed by Mark Miklos, published by GMT. Bonaparte Overruns Piedmont by Kevin Zucker and the Operational Studies Group. Heroes of the Bitter Harvest from Lock and Load Publishing, designed by Devin Heinley. The Mog, Mogadishu 1993 from White Dog Games, a David Kershaw design. And We Are Coming Nineveh from Nuts Publishing, designed by a series of people who with difficult names. Juliette La Menahez. I mean, I don't know. Harrison Brewer, Rex Bryden, and Brian Train. I'm going to have to say, I got to say this stuff out loud, but you're in charge of pronunciation in general, unless it's English or possibly German. Your German pronunciation, I'll tell you, Dan, your German pronunciation needs some work.
Thank you. I accept the criticism.
All right. My French pronunciation is above average for Americans, but bad.
No, it's pretty good.
I did take French. So I also took Spanish and Russian and Latin. So I took a lot of languages that I don't remember. Let me put it that way. All right. So this is a new category this year, and we decided that there was an undesirable level of impact on re-releases over the last couple of years, and this is a phenomenon that's not going away. So. We felt obliged to address it by saying that reprints or re-releases, unless their game is a really substantial redesign, which there are examples of that, although not here, is a really significant redesign. It is not eligible in period categories, but it is eligible for Best New Edition of a previously published game. So the nominees are Axis Empires Ultimate Edition from Stigler's favorite publisher, Decision Games, designed by Thomas Prowl. Cruel Necessity, The English Civil Wars, Worthington Publishing. This is John Welsh design. On to Richmond 2 from Multiman, designers Joe Belkowski, Ed Beach, and Chris Withers. Radetzky's March, The Road to Novara, Dissimula Edizione, designed by Sergio Schiavi. How'd I do, Dan?
No, that when it's CH, it's hard. Schiavi.
Schiavi? Okay, now I know. I probably knew that because I didn't take an Italian. I've never taken Italian, but I did take a class on the Italian Renaissance, and we spent like a couple of days on pronunciation. I remember nothing. I do remember a couple of things, like with the Z's. I remember that, but the rest of it, no. It was a dull class. The Russian Campaign, Deluxe 5th Edition from GMT. This is a John Edwards design. There's no better standard bearer for this category of early 70s game released re-released by GMT this year. Task Force, Carrier Battles in the Pacific, VUCA Simulations, designed by Junichiro Suzuki. Now, this is one that I'm not sure I knew was a new edition. This is and Traces of War, for that matter. These are both games that I had no idea were new editions of older games, but they are. Okay. And again, Traces of War from VUCA Simulations, designed by Tetsuya Nakamura. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. I just got Traces of War. I am very impressed with what I see so far. I'm not trying to prejudice the vote, by the way, just to say that. Go ahead.
Ardy, I don't want to speculate, but with all due respect to all those games in that category, I put my vote in for Axis and Empires.
Well, that's one that I have, and I haven't had a chance to play it yet. That's not quite true. We did Dice a Decision, but we didn't play the bulk of the game. But I played the game in the previous edition, and it's excellent.
Oh, there's good things about it, and too bad it's a monster game because I'll never play it.
Yeah, you could play it in a long weekend, like at a weekend convention. You spend 3 or 4 days at it. You could yeah, you'd have a hard time. You'd have a hard time doing that, actually. If you played the whole thing, if you just played Europe, I think you could get through it in 4 days.
No.
Or the Pacific. Well, not people very familiar with it could get through it in 4 days.
Okay.
I probably couldn't get through it in 4 days the next time I play it. Let me put it that way, because I haven't played it in a couple of years. But all these games are good games, right? I'm very pleased with the quality level of the nominees. Now, there is a game that somebody asked somewhere, and I won't say where, and I won't say what game, that, well, where's this game? Why did this game not get nominated? And I will say here on the show, because I'm being very vague on purpose, that game was not nominated because it is a turd. That's the reason. It's not as good as the other candidates that were voted upon. Now, that's not to say that there aren't artifacts of voting and deserving games get left out. That happens. That totally happens. But I'm very happy with the list of final nominees as they have arrived. Let me put it that way. All right, so this is another new category this year, and this is what a thing we felt we had to do, and we didn't feel we were ready to do last year. This year, we felt we were ready to have a category for social, political, or economic non-military conflict simulations. Okay. Perfidious Albion, I cannot speak to the original game, but I've played Europa Universalis: The Price of Power twice now. Not to completion, unfortunately, because it does take a long time. It's a very slowly paced game. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I think the original was really just kind of an uncontrolled mess. So I'm not sure if I hit that, David, or if Dan hit that, or what.
What?
So I can't really speak to comparing it with but I will probably say I would rather play the board game than the computer game. Yes. And that's saying something, right? That computer game is really great. It's just I suck at it. I suck at the board game too, but at least there's a social element to it. All right. So our nominees in this category are Border Reavers from GMT. This is an Ed Beach design. Europa Universalis: The Price of Power by Aegir Games, designed by Ivan Vettelson. Mr. President from GMT, designed by Gene Billingsley. Sleepwalkers: Imperial Rivalries and the Great War from are published by Dr. Richter Conflict Simulationen and designed by Benjamin Richter, and Weimar, The Fight for Democracy by Capstone Games and Spielworks, designed by Matthias Kramer. I will observe that I think before any of our process really got going, that's not quite true, but I just found out relatively recently that Capstone Games is in Ohio. Who knew? How about that? And Sleepwalkers and Imperial Rivalries in the Great War is another one that I was not aware of prior to. This is why I mean, if any one individual comes up with a list, that list is going to be biased by what that person has seen. And we don't want that, right? We want as rich a selection as possible. Weimar's fairly heavy, I'll tell you that. It's about what it says on the box. And it's fairly heavy by that standard. Looks fascinating. We kind of noodled with it at Winterfest, but didn't get very far in it. I have 2 of these games personally, and Weimar is tempting actually. No, but we're kind of in the region. The heartland of wargames design is definitely that upper Midwest, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota. Yeah. I'll have to look at this, not to my knowledge, but I'll have to look at this. That's probably a typo if that's the case. But that said, this is the core, the source document, but much editing. And this is a huge hassle. This took like most of the night, to get this all done. To just get all the press release edited and formatted and all that stuff, and then to throw all that formatting away and go do it in HTML for the website, and then to throw it all away again and paste it into BGG and then reformat everything by hand. It's a huge headache every year. And any volunteers would like to assist with this, please let me know. All right, the nominees for Best Solitaire or Cooperative Game are A Glorious Chance by Gina Willis, a previous guest of ours, Dan, by Legion War Games, Global War, World War II Worldwide from White Dog Games, a design by Wes Ernie and Ben Madison, Halls of Hegra by Tompet Games, designed by Petter Shanka Olsen, and Viva l'Empereur from White Dog and Blue Panther, designed by Herman Lutman. And I've already mentioned the story with this. It was released by both White Dog and Blue Panther in 2023, which is weird. It's unusual that would happen that way, but it did in this case. All right, the nominees for Best Hypothetical Game are Littoral Commander Indo-Pacific from the Dietz Foundation and designer Sebastian Bay, Red Strike by VUCA Simulations, designed by Yves Rattel, and the Doomsday Project Episode 2, The Battle for the Balkans from Compass Games and designed by Adam Starkweather. This was another category where, what category is that under, Meandering Mike? And I'll fix it after the show. This was another category where it felt like a lot of the potential candidates were actually reprints this year, or could otherwise fit elsewhere. But I expect this to continue to be a viable category. Let me put it that way.
You're talking about hypothetical.
Hypothetical, yes. There is no... I said you might not have been on before I said this, by the time I said this, Dan, but I feel like our category selection right now is very close to where we would like it to be.
I think it's pretty good.
So I'm pretty happy with it. And I have to give a shout out to Mark Herman for making some suggestions that we found extremely valuable. That's why Mark gets a shout out in the press release.
That guy's incredible.
So, well, it's Mark Herman. What do you want? You talk to Mark and you get 17 brilliant ideas because you just talked to Mark Herman. What can I say? All right. The nominees for Best Wargaming Magazine. This was another judgment call, by the way. This did mean that the magazine in question had to have released an issue, at least one issue, in 2023. We did have to make a call on C3I because both their 2022 and 2023 releases got delayed by logistics problems, but they shipped right at the end of the year, but we decided to call C3I issue number 36 a 2023 release for our purposes here. So we have Against the Odds, Bonsai, C3I, Game Journal, Strategy and Tactics, and War Diary. A fantastic selection of outstanding publications. And then we finally come to our Capstone Awards, which
Ardy,
is...
do the war game magazines need a war game?
No, they do not. And in fact, it's for the magazine, not the war game. If a war game is included, a war game has every opportunity to get nominated on its own merits. And we do have a few magazine war games that got nominations. But you are nominating for the magazine. That said, I do think that the quality of the game inside the magazine does drive sales of in a particular issue of a magazine. It probably has an impact on how people think about it, you'd think. So, no, they won't. No, they won't. So, I totally see where Vincenzo's coming from, actually, to be completely honest. How do you feel about this statement, Dan, as our resident music expert?
Is the Brian May of war games? Nah, listen, don't belittle Mark Herman, please.
Brian May is a genius.
Yeah, he's a great artist, but I can think of many more artists to, Mark Herman. You know what I'm saying?
Well, okay, that's fine, but still.
He's the Bartok of war games.
Yeah. Brian May, when he returned to college to get his PhD, finally found that the topic that he had chosen for his dissertation had been basically not worked on since he had left school to be with Queen, by the way. So he just finished the dissertation that he had worked on eons before. This will be up to the committee exactly where Plum Island Horror falls. However, it will definitely be eligible in multiple categories and probably has a pretty strong chance of getting some nominations. Let me put it that way. What do you got, Dan?
I was going to say, when we think of a guy like Brian May, obviously rock and roll, right? Progressive rock, whatever. And you think of the rock and roll lifestyle. If this guy did the rock and roll lifestyle, he never would have been what is he, a cosmologist? What is he?
Astrophysicist.
Yeah, he never would have been an astrophysicist. This guy had a couple of beers.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we have our Capstone Awards, each of which are named after a person of enormous importance to our hobby. First, we have the Redmond A. Simonson Memorial Award, because unfortunately, Redmond Simonson is the late Redmond Simonson. Tragically, he died young, too, for outstanding presentation. This is all aspects of presentation, the box, the maps, the pieces, whatever, everything. We have 4 nominees: Fighters of the Pacific from Capsicum Games and Don't Panic Games. The artists listed, credited on the game are Alexander Bonvalot and Antoine Schindler. Freezing Inferno from Princeps Games and Gigamech Games. And the artists here are Yelena Pievik and Wojciech Zalewski? I don't know. I'm probably wrecking that, but I don't know what to say.
Sounds
Reds could be, yeah, I don't know. Red Strike for VUCA Simulations, artist Pablo Bazerk, and Undaunted Battle of Britain, the artist is Roland McDonald, which is at least easy to pronounce. So this is maybe we should we should have Ricardo on or something like that to pronounce all the names for us. And if it wasn't 2 a.m. over there, I would have asked him. So we have the James F. Dunnigan Award for Playability and Design. The nominees are Mike Denson, Herman Lutman, Mark Simonich, and Jeremy White. So great selection of nominees there as well. We also have the Chad Jensen Memorial Breakthrough Designer Award. This is an existing category that we talked to Kai about, and we got her okay to name it after Chad.
Absolutely fantastic.
And I think everybody's very happy with that decision. I feel like I'm very happy with that call, and I will give a shout out to, although this didn't quite land in the way we had discussed, this was actually Mo's idea originally. So shout out to Mo for a fantastic idea. And we leveraged the idea a little bit differently than the initial suggestion, but it was still Mo's idea. All right. So the way this works is it's for a breakthrough designer, for a new designer or design team whose first or second game. So the award is for a designer or design team, but the game making them eligible has to have been released in 2023, and it has to be either their first or second game. Our nominees are Anthony Burkett, the games that make him eligible this year. Tony's going bananas here. So but by like the end of next year, Tony's probably going to have another 3 credits. So Tony is absolutely cooking with gas. All right. So Tony's first game was The Third Winter. Tony's second, third, and fourth games released in 2023. Those are Battles in the East, Volumes 1 and 2 from Decision Games, and a co-design with Guy Wild, Crimea, Conquest, and Liberation. Harrison Brewer and Juliette Lemenahej.
Very good.
Co-designers of We Are Coming Nineveh, which has been very well received. Alex Knight, designer of Land and Freedom, which again has been very well received. Eve Rattel, designer of Red Strike. All these games have been very well received, or they wouldn't be here, right? These are all great nominees. And Gina Willis, designer of A Glorious Chance. And I see a typo, but I'll try and remember to fix that on the website. It's not that big a deal. And finally, unfortunately, it's split across pages. We have the Charles S. Roberts Game of the Year. Now, there has been some kind of mild rebranding work. There was a Best New Designer award that was previously named after Charles Roberts, which made very little sense because the whole awards are named after Charles Roberts, and they will continue to be so. But we kind of explicitly put Charlie Roberts in the Game of the Year and in the Hall, and I mean he's in the Hall of Fame, but part of the branding changes this year highlight Charlie's influence on the hobby. Let me put it that way. We have a lot of nominees here because it was very hotly contested, and there was a 3-way tie at the bottom of the list. Our nominees are The British Way from GMT, Downfall, Conquest of the Third Reich, also from GMT, Europa Universalis, The Price of Power by Aegir Games, Plantagenet from GMT, Mr. President from GMT. So they're pretty well represented here, but, they were going to be. What are we going to do about that? Valley of Tears from Multiman Publishing, designed by Carl Fung. We Are Coming Nineveh from Nuts Publishing, designed by people whose names I am struggling with, so I'm not going to ruin their day a fourth time here. So that's just been a buzz through of the nominees. That was kind of the objective tonight, since we didn't have a guest scheduled. We do have a guest scheduled for, I don't have anybody for next week, but I do the week after. I'm very happy with the way things worked out. I feel like I'd have preferred an additional nominee in a couple of categories, but things worked out the way they worked out. I see some opportunities for improvement that are pretty mild procedural changes, just like saying, okay, instead of having the vote, within 20 minutes after the end of the meeting, we'll have the vote within, the next 3 days after the end of the meeting, that kind of thing, right? Just strictly procedural changes. I could see making a number of those. There's plenty of room to improve. And I speak for the whole board here, we welcome feedback, either directly to any of us or through the Facebook group. That's totally fine. Today, substantial effort went into just getting everything posted, everything sent out. Emails went out to various press outlets, some of which have already done stuff. I'm very happy with the response so far in terms of number of ballots that have been cast. No, I will not be announcing that actual number, at least right now. Maybe we will at the end. Right now, it hasn't been open for 24 hours yet.
Yeah, that will be at the end of the whole shebang when it's done.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we will, but traditionally, the CSRs have never announced their balloting numbers. Never made the balloting numbers public, but we are shooting for transparency too. So, I would like that. But we'll see. I'm not promising that for this year. So Charles, so anybody filling out a ballot can abstain in as many categories as they wish. You just leave that category blank and hit submit when you get to the end, and that's that. please only vote once, because we will check to make sure that you only voted once, and we will not. I guess if we wanted to be, if we wanted to punish people for doing that, we would discard all of their duplicate votes, but we haven't done that. We have merely discarded. We have kept one of their votes that they submitted, and because frankly, I think usually it's done by accident. Like, you're filling it out, and your browser crashes, and you ended up starting a new ballot or something like that. So usually, I think it's just accidental, and it's not like we had hundreds of people double voting. It's like less than 6 people last year, something like that.
Name them. Name them.
No, I will. I don't think I didn't consider it, but no, we won't be doing that. Thank you, Manders, and thanks everybody else. A lot of thought has gone into this. What we did, we didn't publicize this, but we formed sort of an advisory group in the fall of last year to just kind of talk. And we had, I think, one meeting where we just kind of talked through a bunch of these things and process changes and stuff like that, and threw out ideas, a couple of which were my ideas. My big idea was kind of harebrained. But we found that we might do that again this year, although I haven't specifically planned to do it. It's not a bad idea because I found it super duper valuable. And I think we got a lot of good insights out of it. So there's unfortunately nothing I can do about this. I wish we didn't. There is something I could do about this. However, locking this away would require would make us have to require a Gmail account or a Google account to vote. And we didn't want to do that. I felt like that was a bad idea. So I'll just keep reminding people to only vote once. And like I said, if it's it's a half a dozen people doing it by accident, we'll fix it at the end. It's not an emergency. All right, Dan, do you have any closing remarks before I wrap things up?
No, good. I want to say good job to the people on the, for lack of a better word, the board there, the voting committee.
All the people.
Good job, Ardy, man. It's a lot of hard work, and don't press me too hard to make these too quick. Eh?
That's fine. We'll give you. Don't worry. I will only text you. Is it done yet? Every 2 or 3 hours. So.
I love doing these, man, and under pressure, it's fine as long as I have the time. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you mean, and I have felt tremendous time pressure over the last few weeks too. So now that this is out, but the problem is it's not just this; it's other stuff too, right? I got to do the taxes tomorrow, for example, which will probably have me crawling on the friggin' ceiling. So there's there's always stuff to do, right? I'm hoping that after Buckeye Game Fest, I can actually like sort of chill for a week and just go to work. That would be cool.
Well, man, sort of chill and just go to work. There's a contradiction there.
Patty Rafesky, Patty, do me a favor and email me, and I would love to have a conversation about this history. Ardwulf's Lair at gmail.com. We didn't do this. We could have, but I didn't want to have to write multiple lists of nominees. And if we had included the maximum amount of information in each listing, it would have ended up with a very cluttered ballot, right? The amount of information that is presented here is driven by the amount of information that we could realistically put in the ballot itself. Now, that's not to say that in the future we won't adopt a different method of balloting. We could do that, but right now this is what we're using. So, for a variety of reasons, not just that it's easier for me. All right, folks, we are signing off for tonight. Dan, thank you for coming by, despite all the travails and other hassles that we've had this evening. And did you get to see the eclipse?
Oh, yeah, man. It's
pretty neat, huh?
It was actually a moment in my life because we were right, 50 miles from the path, so I saw the whole thing, man. And
50 mile. So you saw totality though, right?
totality, complete totality. I saw the diamond ring and all that, and I was blown away, man. I was blown away.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Once in a lifetime thing.
Absolutely.
So unless you want to travel for it, then you can do anyway. All right. So folks, we're out of time. We are more than out of time. I would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We had a great turnout, 126 people watching right now. Everybody have a great rest of the night. We'll be back next week with more show. Where's the outro?
Big move. Big win.